Like many of us, 2020 was the most challenging year of my life. I experienced great joy with the birth of my first child and heavy grief after my mother passed away 4 months later from pancreatic cancer. The emotional roller coaster I experienced would only continue to intensify as the world would soon shut down from the global pandemic that was COVID-19. During the pandemic, one thing that became clear to me was a lot of people whom I was personally connected to were impacted just as much as me, but in their own way. In this video, I spoke with some of those people about their experience during the pandemic, what they learned, how they grew, what scared them, what blessings did they receive, and lastly, how did they benefit from the stillness. My first stop, I visited a local AA recovery meeting. I visited these rooms with my father a lot when I was a child, and what I learned to appreciate about them was, 1, the people there were always brutally honest, and 2, the genuine support they provided each other was unlike anything I'd ever seen. So I wanted to hear what battling recovery was like when that support was no longer present.
To be honest with you, I was not in recovery during the pandemic. As a matter of fact, I was so far out there, and I was funded by $600 a week by unemployment to be able to use. For real, I wasn't paying my bills. I wasn't barely taking care of my child. And the other people that were out there besides the essential workers were the drug addicts. We were all out there. We didn't care about masks. We didn't care about washing our hands. And so yeah, but I really think that the pandemic brought me to my bottom lower because like when the money started running out, I didn't know what to do, and I was so far gone in my addiction that I had nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. So I had some things over my head, so I found a safe place to go, and then I turned myself into jail, and that was 7 months ago, and now I'm 7 months sober.
I've been sober 31 years. My whole recovery has been based on the rooms of recovery. During the periods, I kind of took it lightly. We kind of laughed about it. We thought it was just going to be a phase and it was going to be over. And then the realization that going to meetings, because I was a member of a meeting for 25 years and then had to be told that we no longer was wanted inside that meeting because of COVID. So I felt homeless, as they say, and like I said, we took it lightly. Then all of a sudden, we wasn't going to meetings. We were communicating more on the phone, but it was something was missing. The missing part was being able to be in touch with people for real. Mm-hmm. Just having that camaraderie, a hug, a handshake, and none of that was going on. And I was working in a facility where COVID was real. I was working on a ward with COVID. I had to go into COVID rooms to clean them. So it was real rough for me. It was real rough for me, and my anxiety was heightened by a certain guy. He was really just really going off real bad, and he's a close friend of mine, and it scared me. And I believe I lost some relatives due to COVID. I was recently diagnosed with PTSD from my military career. I work in a veterans hospital. PTSD is real, and I'm dealing with people every day with mental health issues. I work on a mental health ward, so I see this going on all the time, and you know, I feel for a lot of people because people don't seem to know.
Talk to me about the importance and the value of community support organizations for the people in recovery. Why is that so important?
It's extremely important, and that's what we do. It's like, as vets, not just vets, people, period, we help each other. And as we help each other, that's how our community, that's how it's like just not me and you, but it's all of us. Right. You know, I have a cousin that I try to help now, but it's important that but I don't think we're doing enough for mental health. I think that when they start closing all these mental health facilities and then people start just going to jail or they're just on the street, it's more we can do. It's a lot more we can do.
Right, yeah. Right. What would you like to see done?
I like to see some more hospitals built, like just for the mental health pay, like they used to have, and then just working with those people, finding out what their needs are, whether it be drug addiction, because a lot of them is connected to drugs and alcohol. So whether it be that, homelessness, whatever it is, just mental health, needing some medication, whatever, some clean living, they just need to be addressed.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Love you, man.
Love you too.
My second stop, I visited some of the most creative, genuine, and disciplined people that I know. The local Nation of Islam of Muhammad's Mosque 37. We spoke with Brother Minister Muhammad about how they were impacted during the pandemic, but also how they found the divine order within it.
The uncertainty, the fears. When we had come in from Savior's Day that year, and we weren't sure exactly what was going on, but there was some murmuring that there was this illness, this virus that was moving around, and you don't know what to believe when you're getting things in the media. But then we got some correspondence from our national headquarters Mosque Maryam in Chicago. And yes, it was a real thing, and we had lost one of our regional ministers, Brother Hafiz in New York. So that hit home, because this is one of the brothers who everybody liked. He was super popular in New York City, you know, one of our major hubs. And so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had asked all the mosques to shut down. We weren't having any meetings, everything was virtual. And that was new for us, and it was difficult because we're used to not only coming to the mosque to hear a message, but the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, seeing each other, giving each other support, being in one another's company. And then the work we do in the community, that also stopped. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, when things begin to loosen up, and here come the big push to take the shot. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we can say that.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah, so when that came up, the minister had already said, July 4th, 2020, when he made his announcement during what we call the criterion, that they were going to push this big want for the population to take this injection. Mm-hmm. What they called, when you get a shot, it's supposed to help you to not be vulnerable to some illness. And we haven't seen that as truth at all. Right. You can get the shot and then still catch the virus, all of that. But the minister already had seen all of that coming, and he warned the government that we weren't going to participate. And if you tried to force it, that would be an act of war. Mm. And so, but what happened on the ground, how that all rolls out, if you're in college, if you're in the workplace, you don't want to lose your job. And they were trying to force you to say, hey, listen, if you don't take the shot, you can't work here, or you can't go to school, or whatever the case might have been. That was difficult across the board. I had to try to advise my children and other people in the community also, who had never been to a mosque meeting, none of that, but they knew the Muslims had some kind of a position on taking the shot.
Yeah, we knew where y'all stood.
Yeah, so they came and some of them asked for advice, and some of them needed a little bit more than that. And so we tried to accommodate in every way we could. But that's just how unstable people's lives had become. No difficulty comes without some benefit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Never does God challenge us and doesn't reward us, man.
Right.
So getting through the challenge sometimes is the hardest part, because we can forget, oh, this is actually a test that's happening for me, not to me. One of the benefits of being in the Nation of Islam is we have that guidance coming from Minister Farrakhan. So when he shares things with us, it helps us frame a thing out. And then as a result of the framing out, then you have a chance to say, okay, so what does this mean to me personally? Mm-hmm. And take some real inventory. The quieting down, the being at home, the not being able to do the things that I used to do, many of which those events gave me a certain sense of belonging mm-hmm. and standing, mm-hmm. right? The behaviors that we get into, the things that we work primarily on in the community, man, the people that we work with, the groups we work with, all of that stopped. So now how do I define my life? How do I even prepare for my day? Do I even have a day? Right.
Our third stop was truly indicative of the current times, being that it was all virtual. I visited a virtual sisterhood centering circle meeting where OBGYNs, psychologists, and community health workers meet weekly with mothers from Akron to support them during their pregnancy and during their child's first year of life to decrease the infant mortality rate here in Summit County.
I would say I just realized it was a blessing when you asked the question. So I didn't know it was a blessing at the time. So in retrospect, my kids were home from school for a year. And I feel like in seeing them and seeing how the two of them one's a SE and one's a QESI, but how they manage this anxiety surrounding COVID was very different. And so, the importance of mental health, I think, hit me in the face. And I feel like it was a blessing as a mother to figure out how to navigate that for each of them. And back to that second quote, how to build bridges and reach out to people who know how to navigate that space. So I think that was a blessing that I wouldn't have known if we weren't in a crisis.
The next stop was none other than John Arbuckle to speak to Coach Brian Williams about his football program. Us as adults will never forget where we were when the pandemic happened, but the teenagers in high school will always remember losing 2 years of what was supposed to be their most memorable and formidable years, many of them still dealing with the ramifications till this day.
I mean, it took our players away, just that simple, man. Obviously, man, it was a devastating time for all of us. But it really was for the Akron Public School System. Buchtel being in the middle of that, I mean, it, like I was telling you guys off the camera, man, 100 kids, 100 boys left this school. 47 was football players. You know, that's 2 teams. You know, so with that being said, man, that's freshman JV. You know, last year coming in late in May, man, I had to go out and get all these guys, man, literally get in the street and get these guys and create a freshman team, and those guys were never developed. These guys are coming straight from Pee Wee. So just imagine, you know, the workload and the implementation that we had to do to make sure that these guys understood what was going on. Absolutely, man. I probably got 5 or 6 guys on my staff that are either counselors, mentor, advocates, social workers, you know. So again, we talk about that often, but it's one of those things too, John. You know, our kids in this digital world that they in now, they want to do it one-on-one.
Right.
You know, they don't know how to express their feelings. So, man, you have to pull them in the closet and be like, hey, man, talk to me.
Right.
That's what we're here for. We're not here just to coach football.
Right.
We're here to coach life as well.
Right.
You know, for you can take this and pass it on to somebody else and help somebody else. So again, man, the mental piece, as you know, is a struggle for the whole nation right now.
Right.
All right. So we make sure that hey man, how was your day today, man? How was the class? Did you eat something? Like, man, that small conversation go a long way. So, man, absolutely, man, we stay on top of these guys. It hurt them. I mean, you already got kids that already live in hard times. So now with COVID wiping everything out, man, you got a lot of kids, man, that's making life decisions on if they're going to play football or not because they need to get a job to help their families.
Right.
So you're dealing with that type of dynamic on top of these kids are online now.
Right.
You know, and who's to say they really logging in?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's just a lot of factors, man, that happen with COVID, man, that put our kids so far behind, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. Man, it just and I giggle a little bit because I get emotional about how our kids are over here on the west side of Akron, and everybody else don't know that.
Right.
They only see a logo, like, you know what I'm saying? They don't see inside these walls, man, what these kids are really dealing with. And inside their walls, they was at home for 2 years.
Right.
So it was a struggle, man.
Right.
My family. I think, man, being more family oriented, having 2 little girls, having my lady, man, and just sitting talking with them. Like, man, that was, again, man, I'm sounding repetitive, but, man, that was a crazy time.
Yeah, you got that time.
You know, man, and again, just learning them, like, you know, to prepare me for this. So now, man, when I come out here, the conversation is a little bit different. You know, man, when you out there and you moving around, man, you just moving so fast, man, you sometimes forget, like, where you going.
Right.
Like, you know, but now, man, with COVID happening, man, it taught me, hey, man, how to have a real conversation, not only with my family, but with my players as well.
During the pandemic, my core group of friends and I all dealt with a close death in our family, bringing us together to begin training and working out together. I spoke with a trainer who transitioned to 4 different facilities during the pandemic. He talked to us about not only the transitions, but how and why he needed that time just as much as we did.
It was definitely difficult because, you know, during the pandemic, you definitely worry about taking care of your family, keeping those parameters in place to stay clean and healthy. But you got to get it in too, you know, sitting there stagnant, not getting the blood flowing, not digesting your daily stresses through fitness was tearing a lot of people up. So we had to be intentional about staying clean, but also staying safe. So that's why we transitioned outside to allow others to join in our movement. Man, I just realized that, you know, I pride myself as operating at a high level and overcoming hurdles, and it was tough for me. So it gave me empathy for everybody else, and it opened me back up to other people because I was closed off coming through my professional transition from football. I was closed off from my community, and this gave me something back just as much as I was giving to others.
For our last and final stop, we visited one of the most popular restaurants and social lounges in Akron. As we know, when the shutdown happened, many businesses didn't survive and weren't able to retain their clientele without in-person interactions. I spoke to the owner about what made their business models different and what helped them withstand the historical adversity.
To be honest, family. And the reason why I say that is because there was times where me and Erica was down here cooking, and you know, you got the curfew and people could choose other places to go to, but people decided to come down here, family, to help us. I remember a time, Erica Wings, rest in peace to her, she would come down here every day. She would sit right here and she would come down here, spend time with us, help us, have her a drink, and just spend the rest of the day with us while we out here cooking and pushing us through the drive-thru. It came to a point where we was like, we about to give you a key, so whenever you want to come here, you come here. But her just being here, her presence, and keeping us motivated to keep going helped a lot. We had E. Fletcher come down here. We had my cousin Vard come down here. We had Terrence Shavers come down here. Tay came down here. A lot of people came down here that was family. My Aunt Maxine, my mom, my dad, my girl Brooke, all was coming out here just basically keeping the place motivating, helping us with everything we need. There's so many people I can name, but they actually helped push us through that. Because without them, I don't think we would have made it at all.
That's it, man. Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir.